esteemed guests, Undersecretary Dominique Rubia-Tutay of the Department of Migrant Workers, Assistant Secretary Ezedine Tago of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Executive Director Indira Banyares of the Foreign Service Institute of the Philippines, esteemed officials and colleagues from the Philippine government and of foreign ministries and agencies, representatives of international organizations, the academe, civil society organizations, our dear audiences from all over the world, I wish you all a pleasant day. Welcome to the webinar on Migration in the Age of Disruption, Technology, Misinformation, and Shifting Geopolitical Boundaries, brought to you by Batch 7 Layag of the Professional Course on Global Migration of the University of the Philippines International Training Center for Authorities and Leaders, or UP-CIFAL. I am your host and moderator for this webinar, Catherine Alpay, a PCGM learner from Batch 7 and a diplomat and public servant from the Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs. To formally open our webinar, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Dr. Michelle R. Palumbarit is the director of UP-CIFAL Philippines, appointed to the role in October 2023. She obtained her doctoral degree in political science from Yonsei University, Seoul in 2016 and her master's degree in Korean studies in 2012 from the same university. Prior to her graduate studies in Korea, Dr. Palumbarit studied at the Asian Center of the University of the Philippines Diliman campus, with Korea as her country of specialization. May I now invite to the virtual floor the director of UP-CIFAL, Dr. Michelle R. Palumbarit, for her welcome remarks.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Catherine. I know we've met before. So again, warm welcome to everyone. As mentioned, and thank you for the kind introduction, Miss Catherine. I'm Michelle, and my field of expertise is Korea. So annyeonghaseyo. So anong sayo. Again, warm greetings from me here. I know that you've come this far, and on behalf of UP-CIFAL Philippines, big congratulations to all of you. Today's webinar on the age of disruption is very, very much relevant for today. And I won't keep you long. I know that this is very important. I do wish you really productive discussions and, comments later on. So I hope to see you soon on your graduation. And again, I wish you the best for today's webinar. Thank you so much. And again, a pleasant afternoon to all of us. Back to you, Miss Catherine.
Thank you, Dr. Palumbarit. On behalf of my co-learners of the PCGM Batch 7, we would like to thank our mentors in UP-CIFAL, of course, Dr. Palumbarit, also Ms. Elora May Atos, Ms. Stephanie Nicole Cruz, and Mr. Lance Jervy Mendoza for shepherding our batch through the course. The success of this learner-led webinar won't be possible without your support. I wish to note that this webinar is organized and being conducted by a group of learners from all over the world as part of an academic exercise, and so the views and opinions expressed are solely those of the learners and do not necessarily reflect the positions of any institutions or organizations with which we are respectively affiliated. And now, let us move on to the webinar proper. The traditional approaches to the experience, understanding, and management of human mobility are presently challenged by technology and globalization. This webinar will bring together perspectives on how certain disruptors are changing the landscape of migration, raising new questions about trust, accessibility, responsibility, and the protection of migrant rights. Our presenters will be identifying three key migration disruptors: informational, technological, and geopolitical, and will examine how these affect progress toward achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially the goals on decent work, reduced inequalities, and strong accountable institutions. The presentations will include proposals for policy and advocacy solutions for mitigating the effects of these disruptors. Through this webinar, we hope our recommendations can contribute to the enhancement of global migration governance in this age of disruption. In the first presentation, we will explore the following key questions. 1. How do online scams target prospective migrants? And how does this expose migrants to fraud and trafficking risks? 2. How does misinformation fuel anti migrant sentiment and discrimination? And 3. What strategies can be used by the private sector, public sector, and civil society to counter false narratives? We will be using the situation of the Philippines as a case study for the presentation. May I now invite to the virtual stage my fellow PCGM learner from the Philippines, Attorney Francis Angelo Lopez, a lawyer, diplomat, and current acting director for Asia Pacific Assistance to Nationals Operations at the Department of Foreign Affairs. Attorney Lopez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Director K, and good day to everyone, and a pleasant morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. And thank you for joining us as we discuss an increasingly urgent issue in the global migration landscape: the rise of migration-related misinformation and its impact on the safety, rights, and well-being of migrants. Today's presentation aims to outline the challenges within the digital information ecosystem and propose a coordinated, evidence-based approach for addressing this risk. Just like what Director Kay said, before we begin, I would like to note that this webinar is conducted as part of an academic exercise. The views expressed here are those of the researchers and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of any institution, including my institution, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or its partner agencies. Nonetheless, the issues raised are grounded in credible research and relevant to our shared advocacy for the safe, orderly, and regular movement of people. Uh, I would like to thank as well my group mates for this presentation, Ms. Mary Joy de la Cruz, Mr. Manolo Tibe, and Mr. Antonio Danao, who researched and prepared this presentation for all of us today. Next slide, please. In today's hyper-connected world, the digital information ecosystem has become one of the most powerful forces shaping migration journeys. What migrants see online, whether truthful or deceptive, influences their decisions, their risks, and their opportunities. Our research identifies three major digital threats confronting migrants today. Number one, financial scams. Two, fraudulent recruitment. Three, anti-migrant disinformation. These threats are interconnected, fast evolving, and capable of causing real harm, from financial loss to trafficking to stigmatization. These phenomena require a calibrated response involving responsible platforms, informed institutions, and empowered migrant communities. Next slide, please. So the problem landscape and evidence base. We begin with online scams and fraudulent recruitment, which international organizations such as the IOM and the UNODC have documented very well the rapid shift of recruitment, trafficking, and fraud into the digital space. Social media platforms and messaging applications are now widely used to lure migrants with deceptive job offers, fake visa services, and fraudulent agencies. We also note Philippine-specific schemes such as agency impersonation and fake recruitment networks that exploit the aspirations and trust of Filipino workers. Criminal networks now conduct recruitment and trafficking operations entirely online through Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp, Telegram, and fake websites. And what I've learned from one of my seminars, it's really difficult to contact Telegram as they do not have a Philippine entity. So that's one of the challenges that the local Philippine enforcement agencies really are having a hard time on, because Telegram has no Philippine office. So that's why when the recruitment is done through Telegram, they usually cannot take down these channels created illegally by that within the Telegram platform. So let me give concrete examples from our research. The Facebook kidnapping scam, where criminals hack a migrant's account to extort ransom from families. The widespread fake Gulf recruitment schemes, where scammers pose as agencies offering high-paying jobs and charge huge visa fees for jobs that do not exist. In the Philippine context, we see the familiar budol-budol recruitment, Budol-budol is like a term but that you're being doped to do something which is not really true or is inexistent, and complete with fake website and forged contracts. I think some of you receive these emails every day as spam, which is almost exactly the same. Some usually with only a difference of spelling with one letter. So it's really very difficult to know which is which one is true and which one is fake. So we understand that some of these Filipinos who fall victims are really were really duped in good faith. So they really had no idea. They had no idea that they were being scammed until it was already too late. And the agency posing scam where fake pages copy the names of legitimate agencies like the DMW to trick applicants into sending money. These scams take advantage of trust, anonymity, and the speed of social media. These examples also illustrate the sophistication of digital scams today, whether through hacked accounts demanding ransom, fake recruitment agencies targeting workers in the Gulf, or elaborate agency posing schemes in the Philippines. Migrants face an environment where criminal groups can easily fabricate legitimacy online. These schemes cause financial harm and can lead to trafficking and forced labor. Next slide, please. The second problem is the anti-migrant disinformation. Research institutions such as ISD and Oxford Internet Institute have documented well-coordinated campaigns that portray migrants as threats to security, stability, and public health. Online networks spread narratives that paint migrants as security threats, economic burdens, health risks, or invaders. Examples include uh, the Great Replacement Theory, next page please, which has inspired uh, violence, the Lampedusa and disinformation campaign where fake videos were used to portray migrants as criminals, the Philippine community experience during COVID-19 when a Filipina was falsely labeled as a super spreader, which triggered online hate against her and to fellow Filipinos as well. And misinformation within OFW networks, such as the spread of unproven medical advice, like the use of ivermectin during the COVID-19 pandemics. These incidents show how misinformation cuts across contexts. In Europe, false narratives such as the Great Replacement Theory have been weaponized. In Asia, migrant communities have been unfairly blamed during public health crises. For Filipinos abroad, such disinformation has led to stigmatization, exclusion, and heightened vulnerability, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, these narratives normalize discrimination, fuel policy backlash, and endanger migrant communities. These narratives also undermine social cohesion, fuel discrimination in some cases, have even influenced policy debates and real-world violence. Next page. Our research highlights 6 interlocking challenges. First, algorithmic amplification. Social media algorithms reward engagement, not accuracy. That means false emotional and divisive content rises faster than verified information. So this is, I think you see this also every day, the rage bait posts that's not being taken down by these social media channels. One of the core challenges is that many digital platforms are designed to amplify sensational content. This creates an environment where misinformation spreads more rapidly than verified information. This structural issue underscores the need for closer collaboration with platforms and more transparent content moderation systems. Another issue is the lack of offices these platforms have in countries in the Philippines, such as Telegram, which I already mentioned a while ago, which prevents government law enforcement agencies from reaching them. Number two, asymmetrical resources. Scammers can instantly create new accounts, while platforms' moderation, especially for non-Western languages, remain limited. Criminal groups operate with agility and resources that often outpace official mechanisms. They can easily create new accounts or websites while monitoring systems remain limited. This imbalance makes it difficult for governments and platforms to curb fraudulent activities quickly. Number three, trust deficits. Migrants often rely on informal networks, not official sources. Unfortunately, these networks are easily infiltrated by scammers. In many migration contexts, official information sources struggle to compete with formal networks where trust is higher. Migrants often rely on peer groups, relatives, and community channels, which unfortunately can also be penetrated by scammers and disinformation actors. I've seen this personally with the scammers in Myanmar and Cambodia. They were usually hired through a group chat in Facebook or Telegram, and that's how they knew about the job that they were supposed to get, and then that's how they were recruited. So that's the unfortunate thing with this social media platforms, that it's really very easy to open, take down, and open a new one without being detected by the local government agencies. Next slide, please. Number four, trust in informal community channels. Filipino communities rely heavily on Viber, Messenger, WhatsApp, and other chat groups which scammers exploit by pretending to be friends of friends who are just who appear to be well-meaning and would just offer you job opportunities, but in the end, they tend to be illegal recruiters who would cause them to be human trafficking victims. Number five, the barangay Facebook phenomenon. Local Facebook groups are major sources of information but are rarely moderated, making them hotspots for viral information, misinformation. So again, these are just opened by private individuals who become the admin of the page or the group chat, and then that's where these illicit activities usually uh, happen, because as the admin you can reject law enforcement personnel from entering, since it's a private group. So that's how they maintain their hold on these potential victims. In the Philippines, cultural practices such as reliance on community networks, barangay Facebook groups, and interpersonal referrals make digital misinformation easy to spread. Number six, regulatory lag. Even with the efforts from the DFA, DMW, DOJ, Bureau of Immigration, and IACAT, online scammers still evolve faster somehow. Despite strong institutional frameworks, the speed and borderless nature of online fraud often outpace enforcement. Next slide, please. Here are our recommended solutions and action framework. To address these challenges, just like the DFA's three pillars, we also propose a three-pillar approach involving technology, platforms, government institutions, and civil society actors. This reflects international best practices and aligns with global migration governance frameworks such as the Global Compact for Migration. To combat these threats, we propose a three-pillar strategy. Letter A, for tech platforms, accountability and proactive measures. Platforms should strengthen proactive measures by elevating credible information, enhancing transparency, and partnering with migration authorities. This includes linking users to verified resources, improving content moderation capacities, and integrating official verification channels for job orders and recruitment agencies. Platforms must take responsibility by integrating trusted content from IOM, UNHCR, and DMW into search results. Provide transparent moderation reports based on Santa Clara principles. Create instant verification tools for agencies and job orders in partnership with DMW and OWA. Deploying geo-targeted warnings for users searching migration-related keywords. Although this will not eliminate misinformation, it can help slow down its spread and empower users to verify information before acting. Next slide, please. For governments and international bodies, Governments must strengthen public digital literacy, enhance cross-border cooperation, and build modern regulatory tools. For the Philippines, this means expanding digital safety modules in pre-departure seminars, strengthening cybersecurity cooperation, and modernizing agency data systems for verification. Governments must fund digital literacy programs based on UNESCO's curriculum, integrate digital safety into all pre-departure orientation seminars, modules for migrants, form cross-border cybercrime task forces to dismantle trafficking and scam networks, and strengthen the digital infrastructure of agencies to provide real-time verification. This approach mirrors global best practices and strengthens the ecosystem of protection for migrants. Currently, I am here in Jakarta for a knowledge exchange visit conducted by the IOM. And for the past 3 days, we've been going around the different agencies such as KP2MI, BP, BPNS, and they've been able to reach the Indonesian migrant workers not only in the center of Jakarta but up to the village level, which is really impressive. And they've been able to identify at least 23, the top 23 migrant sending provinces in Indonesia, which is something that a best practice that we could copy in the Philippines as well. Next slide, please. For civil society and media. Civil society plays a vital role in building community-level resilience by producing disinformation materials, supporting early warning systems, and partnering with trusted migrant influencers. They can help amplify accurate misinformation and promote safe migration practices. Civil society can produce shareable counter-content, operate early warning systems, amplify the work of NGOs such as the Blas Ople Center, partner with OFW influencers and bloggers who are the most trusted messengers for some Filipino migrant communities. Next slide, please. The impact on sustainable development goals. Our recommended actions contribute directly to several SDGs. SDG 4, quality education through digital literacy and critical thinking. SDG 8, decent work by ensuring safe recruitment and reducing fraud. SDG 10, reduce inequalities by protecting vulnerable migrants online. SDG 16, next slide please, peace, justice, and strong institutions by strengthening digital governance. And SDG 17, partnerships for the goals through coordinated global action. To close, let me emphasize one key message. Migration misinformation is no longer a side issue. It is a core migration governance challenge. For Filipino workers, misinformation online is not abstract. It determines who they trust, where they apply, how they pay, and whether they fall victim to trafficking or scams. The Philippines already has strong migration institutions, but the digital environment requires a new level of preparedness. We must meet migrants where they already are, which is online. A successful counter-misinformation strategy must combine the government's regulatory authority, the platform's technological reach, and the trust of civil society and migrant influencers. Only then can we build a truly resilient digital ecosystem that protects migrants, strengthens accountability, and promotes safe, orderly, and regular migration in line with the Global Compact for Migration. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions and to a meaningful exchange of ideas on how we can continue improving the digital safety and protection of migrant communities. Maraming salamat po. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Kokoy. In your presentation, you mentioned 3 interconnected digital threats: financial scams, fraudulent recruitment, and anti-migrant disinformation. You have discussed some very big challenges that would take a whole of society approach. including how criminals who wield disinformation maliciously hide inside private chat groups and make very good use of the anonymity in the digital world to fool, obfuscate, and prey upon the uninformed and unprepared. Our audience may wish to note the very important conclusion that the passive approach to this problem of misinformation is insufficient and that a proactive, digitally native, and collaborative model, as mentioned by Attorney Kokoy, is the only effective path forward. Moving on to the second presentation, we will explore the following key questions. Number one, how are digital technologies reshaping migration? How are they able to make recruitment, remittances, and labor mobility faster and fairer? And number two, what are the opportunities for these emerging tools? What are the considerations? Again, this presentation will also be referencing the Philippine situation and featuring digital innovations for Philippine regulators of labor mobility. May I now invite to the virtual stage my fellow PCGM learner from the Philippines, Mr. Michael Apatad, Officer in charge of the Policy, Planning, and Research Division of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. Mr. Apatad, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Director Kay. Good afternoon to our online participants, to our fellow PCGM learners. How are we all doing? On behalf of our team members, of our team that composed of Ms. Rosel Carrera, Ms. Janice Lagasca, Mr. J.B. Baromeo, and Ms. Crystal Joy Biscaida Armendez, please allow us to present our topic on technological disruption, e-governance, and the integration of digital tools in transforming migration. To begin, let's take a look at the two different contexts which we are familiar with already. First, technology. We all know that technology encompasses a range of tools, systems, and processes that somehow and can significantly alter how we operate, communicate, and engage in our daily activities. While disruption, on the other hand, is often perceived as an interruption or disturbance that changes the normal course of established systems and practices. Now, today, technological advancements have significantly transformed fora and various discussion formats today. These are just examples of technological disruption in our daily lives. Well, the ongoing webinar which we are attending serves as an example of innovation and the introduction of new methodologies. So see, technological disruption really replaces traditional frameworks, paving the way for both new opportunities and challenges. Now let's try to connect this to the impact of e-governance on the migration landscape. For the next slide, what you can see is the overview of our discussion pertaining to the e-governance, which is, in fact, a process of transforming migration management through digital technologies, enhancing transparency, efficiency, of course, there should be effectiveness as well, and inclusivity, of which the key areas that will be addressed include, first, the recruitment. Now, this talks about the digital platforms in terms of reducing fraud and streamlining the hiring processes. The other area is about the remittance, wherein there are already online tools that make money transfer from our migrants faster and cheaper. There you go also with the labor market readiness. It's all about the digital training and job matching that prepare our migrants for evolving labor markets. And so with the other one, which is the enhanced diaspora engagement, wherein our migrants are being transformed into global partners for development through digital means. The next slide, let's take a look also with the correlation of e-governance and migration. We all know that the landscape of migration is really undergoing a significant transformation, but largely due to the implementation of e-governance and coupled with advanced digital tools. And of course, at the same time, there is a strong emphasis on aligning these efforts with what you can see on your screen, the Sustainable Development Goals and the principles outlined in the Global Compact for migration. This alignment aims so far to ensure that migration is indeed safe, orderly, and humane, that provides pathways for migrants while addressing the broader social, economic, and environmental challenges associated with migration. The interplay between digital innovation and migratory policies is indeed critical in terms of shaping a future that respects the human rights and fosters global cooperation. Now, for the next slide, still regarding technology and migration governance, you can see some of the goals here, four to be specific, that relates and dictates somehow the focus on migration governance. There you go with SDG 8, that seeks to promote economic integration through job matching and skills training. Also, we have this SDG 9 on investing in infrastructure, and so with innovation. There's this SDG 10 also in terms of reducing inequality by improving access to healthcare and education. And so with SDG 16, which we know what is all about in terms of enhancing transparency and accountability, and so with reducing corruption risk. Now that's on the side of the sustainable development goals. Let's take a look also on the objectives of the GCM. There are four objectives also that are being aligned in terms of e-governance. We have the objective 4, that is all about the using of ICT to improve civil registers, for example, and providing legal identity documents, while at the same time protecting privacy. Objective 11 also, in terms of the application of technology for secure and integrated border management. So the third one also is about the objective 12, which is all about the simplification of migration procedures with online systems for applications and information. And so with objective 19, this talks about creating conditions for migrants and diasporas to fully contribute to sustainable development in all countries. While no single SDG goal explicitly focuses on diaspora engagement, the United Nations so far has created Objective 19 of the GCM, which aims to create conditions for migrants and diasporas to fully contribute to sustainable development in all countries, because this objective is somehow linked to various SDGs, as the diaspora engagement supports other areas also, and that include economic contribution, the remittances, the skills and knowledge transfer, the promotion of sustainable tourism and local culture, and so with other goals as well. So that's how we link so far the SDG goals and so with the objectives of the GCM towards innovation and towards e-governance of the migration landscape. So what are so far the opportunities that are ahead of us in terms of electronic governance for the migration landscape? Let's take a look with the next slide, because we can see here some of the cited opportunities that we can really work on, because the digital transformation of migration governance presents these opportunities to enhance, as stated earlier, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and inclusivity in managing global and so with labor mobility through the use of digital tools that can really bridge the gaps in traditional systems, and so with empowering migrants, governments, and private stakeholders alike. Now, by leveraging technology for recruitment, remittances, and labor market preparedness, countries can later on transform a future-ready migration ecosystem, such as cost reduction and efficiency gains. We have to take note that so far, World Bank estimates digital governance can cut so far migration costs by up to 50% and can increase efficiency by 30%. So that's really a great opportunity. So why can't we not use it? Looking at what the World Bank has been saying already. So that's one. Another one is in terms of smart policies. Well, because of this e-governance, definitely there will be an evidence-based migration rules and better resource allocation because of the opportunities that are being presented to us because of what we call data analytics. And another one is in terms of quicker procedures. The digital tools certainly streamline applications, and we're seeing that among the practices globally, which we can see later on also, and the reducing of the paperwork, and so with accelerating approvals. So that's one also. And there you go also with improved communication because, well, online platforms provide migrants with easy access to accurate, real-time information. And so with enhanced security and integration support. So these are so far the perceived opportunities that we are seeing already. But let's take a look with that and let's try to dig deeper about these opportunities upon seeing some of the global practices and so with the Philippine government practices as well. For the next slide, let's take a look at how these opportunities are indeed transforming migration governance worldwide. So you can see here some of the best practices in some countries. Later on, I'll discuss thoroughly about these existing systems and programs of these countries like that of Estonia, the e-residency program for global access to business services, the one in Australia, which talks about the digital visa application system that include real-time tracking already, that of in Singapore about its online work permit applications for employers, and certainly in EU, the interoperability border and identification systems which they are currently using, and it's been in place already, specifically on Schengen countries. And so with that of the e-migrate system in India. Now, towards maximizing some of the emerging technologies, what are its relationship also? When it comes to these emerging technologies, we have this AI. We know what is all about this one. That certainly improved identity verification and risk assessment. And we have this blockchain also that secures migration records and prevents identity fraud. However, it should be noted that according to the World Bank, I don't know if you've seen this one and if you've heard about this one, that artificial intelligence and data revolution are accelerating digital capabilities for many. But there's a but. It increases the divide. Take note with the word, it increases the divide as poorer countries to fall under what? Being behind already. Because without access to the internet and the skills to utilize digital technologies effectively, of course, billions will later be excluded from the modern world. And for the next slide, let's start to look at the e-residency of Estonia. This is a government-issued digital identity that provides global entrepreneurs with remote access to the world's most digitally advanced country. It enables a secure online authentication and electronic signature for documents, along with the ability to start a company entirely online from anywhere. So see the opportunity it's actually giving for those who wish to start a company, even though they're not in Estonia, should I say. So it's really a great opportunity for migrants coming from Estonia, even those who are wishing still to invest in Estonia. And so far, Estonia was the first country to offer e-residency dating back in 2014. And it still remains the most popular program of its kind for ambitious entrepreneurial people. So that's one, the e-residency of Estonia. For the next slide, let's take a look also the Electronic Travel Authority of Australia. The Australian Subclass 601 Electronic Travel Authority, or ETA, is so far an electronic visa for passport holders of certain countries, allowing them to visit Australia for tourism or business for up to 12 months. Now, its visit can last up to 3 months, and the visa allows for unlimited entries during its validity period. So what we are seeing here is that applications are made purely online and typically processed quickly. So take note again with the opportunity of this system that's being in place in Australia. Now for the next global practice, let's take a look also for the next slide in Singapore. This digital work permit system in Singapore manages so far the work authorizations through electronic systems such as that of the SG Work Pass app. This functions as a digital version of a work pass rather than a single digital document that replaces all physical permits. This SG Work Pass is Singapore's official Ministry of Manpower mobile app for number one, pass holders to view their digital work pass, and employers, employment agencies, and service providers to provide and verify, of course, any mom issued work pass. And so without of the dependence pass or long-term visit pass. So that's one in Singapore. And another one for for the next slide is the interoperable borders being used already in the EU. And you can see here some of its key features, that it links multiple large-scale IT databases to improve border management and security, and that it enables seamless data exchange between systems, meaning between these countries, and the automated identity verification of borders, which means, and this is equivalent, of course, to supporting safe, paperless, and rights-based migration flows. So the EU's interoperable border and identification systems links multiple large-scale IT databases also. So that's about the interoperable border system in the EU that's being used still until now. For the next slide also, let's take a look with the e-migrate of India. This so far empowers Indian migrant workers, but how? And that is through streamlining migration, because the e-migrate project is a transformation initiative of the Ministry of External Affairs that aims at making the process easy, organized, and humane through this e-governance platform. The system somehow automates and streamlines the entire immigration process in India, mainly for Indian citizens seeking employment overseas through its immigration check required. Now, that's the context of the global best practices. So we've cited few. Again, that's that of the Singapore, EU, India, Australia, and that of in Estonia. Now, let's go to the Philippine context. What have we been doing so far in terms of the governance of the migration landscape in the Philippines? So you can see here what the DMW, or the Department of Migrant Workers, has been doing. And let's try to navigate this one. The DMW was so far able to introduce key initiatives on migration e-governance, such as one, the online recruitment portals that talks about job matching and contract verification. Certainly, we have colleagues here from the DMW, they do know all this. And so with the digital remittance platforms, which you can see through that fintech partnerships, and they have so far the virtual pre-departure orientation also that they are offering to migrant workers prior to their departure. So see, these are being aligned already with the GCM and SDGs to promote one, ethical recruitment, another one, the financial inclusion, and the other area is in terms of skills development. But still, there are gaps in terms of what? Regulating digital labor market intermediaries. So that's another one. For the next slide, let's take a look with this one. We have the Overseas Employment Certificate. Now, what is all about this one? It is in fact a mandatory document that serves as an exit pass or clearance for migrants leaving the country as contract workers. It is also being asked from those returning workers so that they will be allowed to leave the country. And OFW so far, according to the DMW, holds this one, enjoys some privileges like the travel tax exemption, the airport terminal fee exemption, the dues travel tax for spouse or dependents. So definitely without this, without this OEC, a Filipino migrant worker can certainly not leave the country because it's a mandatory requirement for them to leave. It's a paper, right? But let's try to look at how the Philippine government, through the DMW, has been innovating their certificate that they're issuing previously with the migrant workers. We have the next slide that talks about the OFW pass that they just recently launched. Now, what is all about this one? It's that of the paper version of the OEC. Now, this one is already the digital certificate that they do issue. It's a digital identity for migrant workers available through the DMW app, which is intended to completely replace the traditional physical OEC. This is actually a QR code based. These are some of the innovations they did, streamlines the process further, making it more secure and accessible, and serves as a worker's official digital clearance for departure. Now, what is the difference between the OEC and OFW Pass? Like what you can see on your screen, it streamlines the recruitment and departure processes. Of course, they don't have to apply for this one on site. They don't have to queue. They will just do it online. So that's really the comfort of the innovation that the Philippine government has been doing, really. And so with the reduction of the cost, that's one also, and the processing times for workers, and so with the creation of a centralized digital record of migrant workers. So you can see really here the step. They have the paper version of the pass, which being required to migrant workers. They innovated it. Now they're issuing already the digital version of this. And how do they sustain this? Through creation of a centralized database for the monitoring purposes of the national government. For the next slide, the MW has this e-registration also, which operates an online services portal, wherein workers use the system to register their profiles. They can just do it anywhere, upload their contact details, and apply for the OEC. So that's the first step really that they have to do. Okay, and for returning workers who meet the criteria, well, the system can generate a BMX exemption slip also, should I say. And it serves as a one-stop communication and coordination center for addressing issues, because you can see here also the DMW help desk that the migrant workers can course through also, should they have any issues or welfares that they want the Philippine government to attend to. So there's this portal. The Philippine government has been incorporating a lot of the areas which the migrant workers can really reach, and of course avail of the services, doing it online. So that's for the context of the services for temporary migrants vis-a-vis the contract workers. Now, let's try to look at the context also of what the Philippine government has been doing and has been addressing when it comes to addressing also the concerns affecting Filipino permanent migrants. So you can see the difference here. The earlier discussion was about the services for temporary migrants, which is equivalent to the contract workers or the OFWs. Now, let's try to look at the services for permanent migrants also through the empowerment. For the next slide, you can see here one of the systems that was developed by the Philippine government through the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, which, of course, the CFO primarily empowers the permanent migrants or overseas Filipinos through promoting their welfare, encouraging them to become later partners in national development. So that's what the Commission has been doing, the CFO. But how did the e-governance change the course of empowering these immigrants? So we have these lots of pre-departure services that we are giving to permanent migrants as our way of empowering them, because later on, our intention is to make them as partners of national development. Recently, there's this system that was developed. In fact, this was our immediate response when the COVID-19 pandemic struck last 2020 of March. Of course, the Overseas Filipino CFO online registration system, wherein overseas Filipinos can conveniently register and avail pre-departure services from their homes without the need of proceeding to the office. Okay? So as a result, this provides an online registration option for Filipino immigrants with the CFO without the need of proceeding, and that this innovative online service has enhanced the convenience of registration and transactions with the CFO. So because of this, the immigrants can just do what? Virtual attendance to some of the pre-departure orientation seminars which they are required to attend to prior to leaving, such as the pre-departure orientation seminar for immigrants. We have also the peer counseling program for youth migrants. They can certainly do that online. And so with the pre-departure orientation seminar for exchange visitor program participants who are bound for the US. Now, for the next slide, how does the e-government governance being sustained for the permanent migrants? That is through e-governance collaboration. Now, the output or the very pass that the CFO has been giving to the permanent migrants is the one that you're seeing on your screen. This is the certificate, the one that allows them to leave the country. They can just be issued this one online upon their completion of attendance to the orientation. And what the CFO did so far was to strengthen it by way of partnering with the Bureau of Immigration on a real-time data sharing system, which enables seamless verification of CFO constituents and deterring scammers, fixers, and human traffickers. Because the CFO database systems interoperates with that of the Border Control Information System of the BI. So it's so simple already. We can just do a seamless checking whether or not a CFO constituent was able to register. For the next slide, we just want to share also that the CFO process has been integrated already into the e-travel app. What does this mean? Because of the partnership again with the ICT, so a constituent, if for example they're about to leave, they can just check through the e-travel app and they will be notified if they were able to register. Should they need to register, being one of the constituents of the CFO, then they will have to proceed first, and they will do first the mandatory registration. Therefore, they will be included in the database system of the Commission. Now, this instant verification process checks if Philippine travelers heading abroad require CFO registration prior to their departure. So this is how the collaboration works already. We can just simply do the checking and the verification as smooth as possible. For the next slide, in terms of the integration of the CFO process into the e-travel app, to simply summarize what these initiatives are all about, the CFO's registration procedures have been made more convenient for its stakeholders. The CFO process is now fully integrated into the e-travel app, allowing the outbound travelers to instantly verify if they secured already the registration, and it offers virtual attendance, and that stakeholders can confirm their attendance for on-site seminars should they wish to do so. And after attending the seminar, digital certificates are provided, which do not have an expiration date, as long as the individuals have the same visa status. So we were able to empower them already. They were able to leave the country already. If they're there already, then they settled already into their respective host countries. Now, how should we still connect with them? There's this so-called Balinkbayan for the next slide, which is the one-stop online portal for diaspora engagement, because this is one of the government strategies to actively engage them as crucial partners in national development, thereby leveraging their diverse resources, skills, and networks. By tapping into the vast potential of overseas Filipinos, the government aims to harness their financial contributions, expertise in various fields, and strong connection to global markets through e-governments. This is our way of strengthening our economic growth and innovation within the Philippines while deepening their bond between the diaspora and, of course, the Philippines. Balikbayan is one of our flagship programs to actively connect the overseas Filipinos with development-focused diaspora initiatives. Because how does this work? It provides business and investment opportunities for overseas Filipinos by doing how? What are the processes? Well, two steps. First, it links overseas Filipinos to development-oriented diaspora initiatives in the Philippines. And second is that it provides business and investment opportunities for overseas Filipino investors at the national and local level. Now, our way also of continuously engaging with them, if, for example, they're there already, is through what? we have to connect with them through our online kumustahan, which you can see in the next slide, because we have to do this continuously. Okay, still not an agency commitment, but of course the national government commitment when it comes to continuously monitoring and checking on our migrants. If we cannot do this on site, then let's think of another way on how to connect with them. And that is through our online kumustahan. This is our vernacular way of checking on them. Okay, even though they're there, regardless of the time difference. This online kumustahan is somehow a dialogue with them or with the CFO constituents that offers platform to share their migration experiences, including their challenges. And so with whatever policy development that they wish the government should develop for them through our Congress. And in our way, of course, we have to bring that to the attention of our Congress whenever we hear some of their concerns also, especially when it comes to developing some possible bills and later on turning it into laws. So that's how we do it. So that's how we continuously engage with them through that online kumustahan. And we all know that, of course, both global and local contexts of e-governance practices are crucial. The Philippines is a major centric country, faces really challenges. But how can we really manage this one? For the next slide, please. Really, there are these challenges. While these digital tools reduce fraud, cost, and prepare workers for changing labor markets, challenges remain in bridging the digital divide, ensuring cybersecurity, and harmonizing regulation. The integration of e-governance in migration management promises efficiency, transparency, and inclusivity, yet its implementation faces significant challenges. While digital tools for recruitment, remittances, and labor market preparedness can transform migration systems, several barriers still hinder the full potential. Like what you're seeing, the digital divide, we need to work on that, okay, and how to stop it. And so with some of the system interoperability, okay, the different countries using compatible systems, how can we work on that? How can we synchronize everything, making the cross-border data sharing and coordination difficult? So what are some of the recommendations after this? For the next slide, you can see that, well, one, we have to centralize recruitment, credential verification, grievance mechanisms, and benefit portability for migrant workers. There's a need for us also to promote low-cost remittance channels through partnerships and incentivize digital transfer. Another one is for us to expand government programs also. But how? We have to integrate online certification and collaborate with tech companies, as what you can see on your screen, to prepare migrants for future jobs, not just locally, but globally, of course. How can we connect with the stakeholders to do this one? And another one is, of course, let's strengthen the digital infrastructure and data security. We know the vulnerability of data security in terms of hacking. So how can we do that? Let's upgrade the connectivity for migration systems and implement robust data protection frameworks to safeguard migrant information. And of course, another area is for us to what? Foster public-private partnership. Earlier, we've seen some of the areas wherein we do collaborate with certain agencies, but that is through interagencies, intergovernment agencies. Now, how can we do that also with public-private institutions? So these are just few of the recommendations. And to conclude, what you can see here is that, well, for the next slide, digital platforms are somehow changing how our migrant workers access information, okay? How they're being connected with employers and protect their rights. Now, they make processes faster. Yes, that is true. We've seen that and we're experiencing that. Cheaper as well and safer, and allow organizations to reach workers at a scale never seen before. Well, tools like Record My Hours, I don't know if you've heard about that, help my workers track hours securely, while platforms like Contratados let migrants share experiences and make informed choices. Yes, technology also opens new possibilities, such as using blockchain that you've seen earlier for contract verification, biometrics for worksite registration, and digital IDs for secure identification. These innovations can empower workers and even influence policy changes like visa portability. However, technology is not a quick fix. We know that. And it can certainly not replace strong institutions or human intent. digital solutions must be combined with offline programs and designed responsibly to protect privacy, ensure informed consent, and address risks like data misuse. Now, the most effective initiatives will integrate technology with advocacy and support systems to deliver real benefits for migrants, be it workers or permanent. So that's for our topic. So thank you, and hopefully at least you get something out of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. In your presentation, you mentioned both opportunities and challenges that digital technologies are bringing to migration. On the one hand, e-governance lends to improved communication and faster processes, including on integration support, among others. On the other hand, there are data security and privacy risks and concerns, on top of current infrastructure gaps and access limitations across sectors of society. These, among other concerns you mentioned, are challenges our world has to overcome in order to maximize the positive gains of digital technology for migration and development. Just as shown in the examples of digital innovations that Mike presented, the transformation of migration governance in the Philippines could be dramatically accelerated. Our presenter also cautioned, however, that technology is not a quick fix, as it cannot augment human intent, and it is essential that humans rise with the best of our humanity, not just machine technology, to drive human mobility forward in the best interest of all human beings. In our final presentation, we will explore the following key questions. Number one, given the present realities of externalization of migration control, that is, the outsourcing by destination countries of their border and asylum responsibilities to third countries. So what are its ethical and legal implications? Do new practices of externalization in particular expose gaps in protection, law, and governance of international migrants? And number two, what possible ways forward could we explore to ensure responsibility sharing and the upholding of human dignity? This presentation will be referencing examples from around the world. May I now invite to the virtual stage my fellow PCGM learner from Algeria, Mr. Noureddin Bessadi, Senior Policy Officer at the Embassy of the Netherlands in Algeria. Mr. Bessadi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues. Migration policies are undergoing a profound transformation, marked by an increasing reliance on third country deportations and externalization agreements. These practices shift asylum processing and protection responsibilities away from destination states and put it onto countries with fewer resources, often raising serious legal, ethical, and human rights concerns. In this presentation, we will explore how these policies operate across different contexts, from Australia and Italy to the United Kingdom and the United States, and will examine their implications for international law, global governance, and the safety and dignity of displaced people. Next slide, please. What do we mean when we talk about third country deportations or externalization? Third country deportations or externalization refer to policies where a state transfers asylum seekers or migrants to another country deemed safe instead of processing their claims within the destination country. This shifts responsibility for migration management beyond the state's borders, often to countries with fewer resources or weaker protections. The goal is to deter irregular migration while outsourcing legal and humanitarian obligations. Next slide, please. The public or the common objectives of these policies are deter irregular migration is domestic pressure. We know that extreme right parties and extreme right ideologies are putting a lot of pressure on governments in many of Western countries, in many of destination countries. And the third objective is to project border control. Many politics and officials believe that third country deportations or externalization will discourage migration to Western countries or to the most common destination countries, such as the United States or the European Union, and will encourage voluntary return to one's country of origin. We will see that it's not so easy, and things are more complicated than those public objectives. Next slide, please. We have many key points that we should mention. First, deportees may face harsh prison conditions and lack of due process. We all know that there are many reports, media reports on deportees who face harsh prison conditions, and who have been through through processes that lacked a lot of due process and fair processes. The second point is that these safe third countries are often have fewer resources and weaker protections within these countries, and these agreements may undermine international humanitarian law, enabling wealthy nations, common Western destination countries, to evade their own responsibilities towards asylum seekers. Third, we know that deportations often occur without any legal counsel or any chance to express persecution fears, and many migrants or deportees end in very severe conditions, sometimes with risks for their own lives. Fourth point is that deportees risk harm, including torture or death. Many reports talk about these cases, and these procedures often violate international law. The fifth point is lack of transparency. Sometimes these deported people have been told that they will end in a certain country, but they end in another country, and they discover the third country of destination when they arrive there, and they have been told other things through the process. Next slide, please. We will explore these elements through 4 cases. We have the Australia Nehru deal. We have the Italy Albania deal, the UK Rwanda deal, and the US third countries. When we talk about Australia Nehru deal, Australia sends asylum seekers and non-citizens to Nauru for offshore processing, and sometimes it takes a long-term time resettlement, even if they have no connection to the third country of destination. The system has been criticized for loss of procedural fairness, for human rights violations, and for harsh living conditions in Nauru, which raises serious concerns about accountability and compliance with international law. Regarding the Italy-Albania deal, Italy established two asylum processing centers in Albania, where intercepted migrants in the Mediterranean Sea have been transferred for accelerated procedures and potential return to their origin countries. This deal or this arrangement raises questions about legal jurisdiction, oversight and protection safeguards as asylum seekers are processed outside the EU territory, which means uh, they were supposed to be processed in the EU in Italy, but they end by being processed outside the EU territory. Regarding the United Kingdom Rwanda plan, the UK Rwanda partnership aimed to relocate asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda, where their claims would be examined, and successful applicants would remain in Rwanda. The policy faced major criticism over refoulement risks, fair trial rights, and ethical concerns, and it showcased the tensions between deterrence and protection standards. Finally, the fourth example is the United States third country removals. Under U.S. law, uh, migrants can be deported not only to their home countries but also to third countries, sometimes without strong safeguards or clear consent by the concerned people. These removals often involve limited due process, they lack legal counsel, and there are high human rights risks, prompting warnings from UN experts and about violations of international law. Next slide, please. Let's try to go in detail through these cases. Regarding the Australian Nauru deal, this migrant amendment bill in 2023 sends non-Australian citizens, including refugees and asylum seekers, to other countries for resettlement or deportations, even if they have never been to that country before. And that's the biggest problem. Australia signed an agreement with Nauru, granting deportees a 30-year visa to work and live freely among its 12,500 residents. But there are many reports of harsh living conditions in Nauru, and also reports of some human rights violations there. Next slide, please. What are the key aspects of this policy? There are some legislative change. The Australian government enacted laws to strengthen deportation powers after a court ruling against indefinite detention. What is the government justification? The Australian government tried to justify this policy, saying that changes are needed to manage risky individuals with removal, and they say that the removal is the only option after review. There are procedure fairness changes. New laws permit deporting non-citizens to a third country without a hearing and without any consultation, which raises concerns about procedural fairness. What are the risks to individuals and refugees protection? There are many concerns about individuals who may be sent to dangerous locations and to risky locations for their own lives, which threatens refugee protection and international obligations. And when it comes to the human rights implications, Human Rights Watch and the Refugee Council of Australia have highlighted many potential negative human rights impacts of these policies. Next slide, please. Now we go to the Italy-Albania deal. In 2023, Italy became the first EU country to delegate its asylum procedures to a third country. Italy established 2 centers in Albania where Italian authorities intercept irregular migrants at sea and try to process their asylum requests and potential returns proceedings outside Italy. Please note that this is not limited only to Albania. There are ongoing discussions by the EU with many Mediterranean countries. We are focusing on the Italy-Albania, but there are other examples. The EU-Egypt deal, the EU-Tunisia deal, and the EU-Morocco deal are other examples of externalization. Next slide, please. What are the key aspects of this policy? When it comes to the scope, the 2 centers handle up to 36,000 applicants annually, with a majority of these applicants being adult men. These migrants are being processed under Italian jurisdiction, but it's outside EU legal reach because it's in Albania, which is not a EU member country. What are the main issues? There is legal uncertainty, and these deal is there is limited use of these deals so far, but there are many human rights concerns when it comes to fairness, when it comes to consulting the concerned people, and there are a few reports about human rights concerns in these centers in Albania. When it comes to the status, there's the deal is operational, but it's underused because it faces many. It is facing many legal challenges. The most important of these challenges is that this deal is processed under Italian jurisdiction, but outside EU legal reach. Next slide, please. Now we'll talk about the United Kingdom Rwanda talks. We used to talk about the United Kingdom Rwanda deal, but now it has been frozen. The migration and economic development partnership with the government between the UK and the government of Rwanda gave birth to this arrangement. And within this arrangement, asylum seekers in the UK were supposed to be transferred to Rwanda to have their claims processed in Rwanda, more than 2,000 kilometers far from the UK. And those granted refugee or humanitarian status were supposed to remain in Rwanda. But we have seen that these raised a lot of discussion and public debate in the UK, and now it has been frozen. Next slide, please. What are the concerns of this deal? The outsourcing asylum obligations put refugees in danger and undermines global solidarity and breaks international law. The talks now are being paused and the UK is now seeking EU-wide solution because, as I mentioned earlier, this deal, triggered a tense public debate in the UK, and it raised many human rights concerns, and it has been now paused or frozen. Next slide, please. Now we go to the fourth case, and it's the U.S. and third country removal. And under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is allowed to deport migrants to countries other than country of origin when necessary. Can you imagine you are from a certain country, let's say Philippines, and you end deported in let's say in Guatemala or in Colombia, so without any connection to this country. This raised many concerns about human dignity, human safety, and many other human rights concerns. Immigration judges determine the deportation country, but the DHS may select a third country, and this is without any consultation and often going beyond any concerns, any human rights, consideration. Next slide, please. The key issues and concerns. The first one is that migrants should have the opportunity to object the removal through a legal process, which is not always available in the US. The second concern is that assessment must be individual and country specific. We should look at the situation of the individual and see what is his or her country of origin. But in the US, this is not always the case. So when we know that international law forbids sending people to places with a high risk for their own safety, or high risk of torture, or arbitrary deprivation of life. And we know that most of cases are coming from Latin America countries. So there are many reports of human rights violations when it comes to these third country destination. The US must prevent refoulement per Article 3 of the Convention Against Torture, Articles 6 and 7 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and Article 33 of the Refugee Convention after ratifying the 1969-67 protocol. But this is not respected. This is not always respected, unfortunately. For effective and legal aid in deportation cases, the procedures need independent oversight, which is not once again the case. On June 23, 2025, the Supreme Court lifted an order halting the deportation of foreign nationals due to human rights concerns. 8 migrants from Myanmar, Cuba, South Sudan, Mexico, Laos, and Vietnam were reportedly deported to South Sudan. I mean, to a country where they have no connection. They have not been consulted before this deportation, and we see that the Supreme Court in the United States lifted an order halting this deportation, which raises many concerns about human rights law. Next slide, please. what are the legal and ethical themes in this case? There is the non-refoulement and fair asylum access at risk principle of non-refoulement. We know that there is a prohibition for state to deport, expel, or return a person to a country where his or her life or freedom will be threatened or would be put at risk. We know that there is this fair asylum access. Individuals who are seeking protection from persecution should have fair access to enter a country and benefit from a transparent legal process. And when it comes to jurisdictional gaps, there is no single court for third country deportation. So this is a big jurisdictional gap in international law. Next slide, please. Also, there is a concern with accountability. Oversight and appeal mechanisms are unclear. People are deported illegally without fair hearings, without any legal counsel, and without any chance to express fears of persecution, which violates US and international law. When it comes to ethics, shifts protection burdens to poor states, which means that poor states often process deported migrants through secret deals with fewer resources, and this raises concerns about human rights violations. And there are a lot of jurisdictional differences, of course, between the first destination countries and these third countries of deportations. Next slide, please. What is the impact of on sustainable development goals? The SDG 10 externalization worsens global inequalities by shifting refugee protection to less resources and countries, often with weaker protection safeguards. SDG 16, outsourcing refugee processing and detention undermines transparency and accountability and weakens democratic institutions. SDG 17, externalization policies often rely on bilateral or regional deals that prioritize deterrence over protection. Next slide, please. And when it comes to the impact on the sustainable development goals, there is also SDG 1 and SDG 8. Many asylum seekers face exclusion, labor exploitation as a result of externalization measures that deny the legal status. SDG 3, offshore detention and border practices lead to mental health issues, poor living conditions, and limited access to health care. I mentioned earlier that it often happens that a migrant or a refugee or asylum seeker end up in a third country without any connection with this country, without any connections with people. So they end in harsh conditions and poor living conditions and limited access to health care, which undermines SDG 3. Next slide, please. Now, what we can say that global as global mobility continues to intersect with security politics, externalization is becoming a defining feature of contemporary migration governance. The case studies presented reveal a consistent pattern: limited deterrent effects, weakened accountability, and heightened risks for asylum. The challenge ahead is not only to manage borders, but to uphold international legal obligations and human rights standards. A fairer and more sustainable system requires responsibility sharing, transparency, and policies that center the protection and dignity of people on the move. Thank you very much. And yes, next slide, please. I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity and giving me the floor. And I'm available if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nuruddin. Your presentation tackled quite a heavy topic, externalization, and you presented 4 cases from around the world. This highlights the rise in current subscription to externalization, which makes this topic both timely and relevant. You laid out the key issues and concerns and emphasized key legal and ethical themes, notably the need to uphold the principle of non-refoulement, to administer border management processes fairly, and to recognize and address jurisdictional gaps. The growing externalization of asylum responsibilities is an issue that merits all sides being heard equally and all working together to understand and identify problem areas that can be solved collaboratively. Time may be against us on this issue, but we must persist because human lives and their futures hang in the balance. Now I wish to thank and congratulate our presenters, Attorney Francis Lopez, Mr. Michael Apatad, and Mr. Nuruddin Besadi for masterfully discussing informational, technological, and geopolitical disruptions that impact and are also influenced by global migration trends. I wish to also acknowledge all my fellow PCGM learners of Batch 7 who worked diligently behind the scenes to assemble the presentations and steer our group throughout the production of this webinar. Kring, RC, Janice, JB, Janine, Adrian, John, Mary Joy, Patricia, Antonio, and Manny. Of course, thank you to our chair, Ms. Safia Hussein Sheikh, our scribe, Ms. Corina Pinto, and editors, Ms. Monica Limpo and Ms. Aline Padlan for capably steering our class in the development and production of the 3 presentations. At this juncture, we move to the question and answer forum of the webinar. PCGM Batch 7 Layag, may I invite you all to open your cameras so we may begin with the Q&A. So is everyone ready with their cameras open? Thank you. So while my classmates from Batch 7 are getting ready to open their cameras, dear audience, we thank you for the questions you have already sent in the chat. We received 4 and have answered 3 so far, and we have chosen to combine 2 questions in particular to discuss in the live chat. Our group of learners from different government and non-government affiliations from the Philippines, Canada, US, Somalia, and Algeria shall now endeavor to give our insights on the questions raised. In the interest of time, I will choose only 1 question for live discussion from the chat box. And if there is more time, we shall invite a live for live discussion, a person from our audience. Okay, thank you, dear audience, for your kind understanding and cooperation. So let us begin. Firstly, the question that we have chosen to discuss: how can governments and institutions design migration systems that do not exclude those with limited digital access? What role should public institutions play in ensuring digital inclusion for migrants? What investments are needed to ensure equitable access to connectivity, devices, and digital skills? Our first reactor from the class May I call on Ms. Corina Pinto?
Thank you, Director Alpay. Hope you can hear me. And thank you so much for the question to the person in the audience who asked. I will answer just from some examples from Canada, just speaking from my own personal experience in my career. So in terms of strategies to ensure access to migration systems for those without digital access, I think it's important to recognize the ways that digital tools can already, in one sense, increase access for a lot of people. An example I can think of is actually in the past, when the only way to apply for a visa was to physically go to an embassy with a stack of papers and documents and apply. That made it easy for people who live maybe in capital cities and who could easily access an embassy. But for those in more remote areas, it made it a very difficult option for them to apply. And so in a way, moving towards options for people to apply for visas online has actually increased accessibility for a lot of people. That said, the question kind of poses the other sense. There are still people who lack digital access, maybe because they don't have internet or their internet connection isn't stable. And so I think as we talk about, as my colleague, Mr. Apatat, highlighted in his presentation, all of the different ways that we can use technology to innovate the way migration systems work, it's important to not leave behind those that may not have access to those digital tools. And so not forgetting about the traditional media, for example. So as much as governments are trying to leverage social media to reach applicants, it's also important to at times see when does it make more sense to do traditional newspaper ads or radio, and making sure that the messaging that governments and public institutions want to convey is reaching all kinds of people in the population of various ranges of access to digital information. And so some examples I can think of from Canada, I was previously posted in Kenya, and there we undertook a joint campaign between the government of Canada and the government of Kenya to do, for example, a billboard campaign. And so people driving on the street would see these posters, and they don't need a phone even to be able to see this messaging about how to come to Canada safely, regularly, and how to prevent falling for a scam. We also did radio interviews and even specifically targeted radio stations that played on public transportation vehicles during peak commute times to really maximize the reach of these kind of non-digital ways of communication. So those are just some examples I can think of. And I welcome any other examples from the audience or from my fellow learners. Thank you.
Thank you, Corina. Before I call on Mr. Nuruddin, I believe that there are further examples also from another of our PCGM learners that she wishes to share. So may I call to the floor Ms. Safi Shaikh Hussein.
Hello, everyone. I would like to add on the points that my colleague Corina addressed already. So in here in Africa, basically, so I'm in Nairobi right now. So it's the internet access is not pretty common in here. So like around here, you would see people who are still using that the torch phones, and they still even did not have an internet access. So I think one point is important is to create boot camp or certain things in which at least the youngster, okay, for now we cannot reach the elders, but at least for the youngster, where we can where they can learn how to access the internet and how they can find their how they can connect to the world. But also there is one important point. It's important that the public institutions not to monetize everything. So even there is a boot camp and certain things, but everything is monetized in here. So when a person cannot have a phone which has an internet access, then how he can go to a digital, boot camp where it's very expensive to join in. So I think that's also an important point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Safi. That's a good sharing from you. Next is from Mr. Nuruddin.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add a point about putting content or putting content in some minority languages or languages of the migrants, because even if you have connection, internet connection, if you don't have access to the main languages, French, English, Arabic, Chinese. If you speak your own language as a migrant and you don't have access to the content or to how to say it, to a relevant content in your own language, it may cause a problem, and it may prevent you from and it may put you in this digital gap.
Thank you, Nuruddin. I have one more reactor, and that's Miss Monica.
Hi. Okay. My input is actually also taking from what Safi and Nuruddin said, which is I think it's time for state actors to invest in communication experts, in engaging uh, real communication experts who are very experienced in doing large scale and massive information campaigns nationwide using traditional media, like media that is already accessible to migrants, such as um, televisions, newspapers, deploying or leveraging the widespread reach of platforms like YouTube and TikTok and Twitter, like things that are accessible to as many people as possible. I think um, the important point here is it really is an investment. It will cost money, but because we encounter, especially us who are in government, we encounter a lot of pushback when we request for budgets for projects that we do in our work. But the I believe that if the political will is strong enough and the need is very urgent and crucial. It is not a minor thing to deploy a massive information campaign. Then we should invest in this, because if we're saying that migration is the future, then we should invest in our future. Thank you.
Those are lovely words, Ma'am Monica. To be honest, I think that this is a key message that we really should invest in the future. But I'd like to also add to what you said, that migration is the future. Well, it's also the past and the present. So it permeates our history. It permeates humanity's time on Earth. So, well, as long as there are humans, I believe that there's migration. It's just the way it is. But I'd like to also highlight and go back to Mike Apatad, because your presentation resonates with this question a lot. And you said something, well, not really said, but all throughout that presentation, you implied the passion, the heart for migration. And that's really what's driving forward your motivation to create programs, activities. And I think that's really important. As a final reaction to the question, I'd like to pose an additional, a corollary to it. What do you think
course.
is the human element? What quality should we have to ensure that we have sustainable motivation to advance to or embrace digital inclusivity for
Well,
migration
that's quite a hard one. Okay. I'd like to add this one. Of course, it's just so basic. It's everyone's commitment already when it comes to enticing everyone that we should be all stakeholders on this one. And I'd like to mention also one of the major accomplishments which the national government of the Philippines did. You've heard, I think, about the eGov app, right? Of the DICT, wherein every single government agency have integrated already their systems there, their websites, their mobile apps. Now it seems like everyone is on their phones. We can tap that. When it comes to the information campaign, massive information campaign, since every single individual used to have their phones already, every now and then they are used to checking their phones. If they can just simply download the eGov app, and that's one major step for all of us, that indeed information campaign about the migration landscape, not just about overseas Filipino workers are migrant workers, but for all the global migrants can be included there. And it's just so simple. They can just have it access there through that e-gov app. So it's just a matter of committing everyone to, hey, let's all join hands, of course, in order to advocate for what is needed for our migrant workers. When it comes to securing their welfare, when it comes to providing them the necessary information on what they should be doing and what they should not be doing. For example, they are already in their respective host countries. And later on, of course, when it comes to them settling back in their home country, like here in the Philippines, later on, they will be considered as partners indeed of the national development. So that's what I can add, and probably for all our participants elsewhere, hopefully they can take from all the pre-discussions, and later they can also advocate for some sort of policy advocacies through their respective governments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Excellently said. So now we have an opportunity to call on an audience member who wishes to raise a question for the live discussion. May I call to the floor Attorney Bungkin to pose his question in the Q&A. Attorney Bungkin? I think that Attorney Bungkin is not able to join us that quickly. So, well, there is an opportunity to discuss one more question in the Q&A. I see. Mr. Rene Alvin Oquendo raised his hand. May we invite Mr. Oquendo to the floor? I see. May I call on your tech team? Would you be able to resolve our issue of connecting our participant? Or perhaps you can post the question in the chat box.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance. I was disabled a while ago. So
Okay.
my name is Edwin Kin, Attorney Edwin Kin. I'm from the University of Santo Tomas. I just would like to ask, what is the how can we reconcile the emerging issues on terrorism and other violations of human rights in relation to these migration policies that we are trying to discuss? Because we said that migration and immigration are both the past, the present, and the future. However, on one side, there's a emerging negative side on moving of people from one country to another country. And how could we converge or reconcile on the one side national policy of sovereignty, and the other side the coming of other nationalities or other nationals to their country to protect the interests of their sovereignty. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Attorney Bungkin. This is actually a very interesting question. We did try to tackle it in the third presentation. Mr. Nuruddin, if you are able to respond to it, I'll give you 2 minutes in the interest of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy. It's a very relevant question. It's not easy to tackle these human rights considerations when it comes to migrants or asylum seekers, and to put them in line with these sovereignty considerations. And when we know that many of these countries, which are becoming third country destination, like Rwanda and Nauru, and all these examples that we mentioned earlier, are themselves country of origin of migrants. So it's not easy to let me give you an example in our context in North Africa. The EU, as I mentioned in my presentation, is trying to put in place deals not only with we don't have only the Italy Albania deal, but we now have the EU Egypt, the EU Tunisia, and the EU Morocco deal. So these countries of the southern Mediterranean are supposed to prevent sub-Saharan migrants from going to Europe through this externalization policy. But at the same time, we know that these countries are themselves country of origin of thousands of migrants to Europe. So how to manage to take into account these sub-Saharan migrants' human rights and dignity, and at the same time prevent them from going from crossing the Mediterranean, when we know that there are thousands of North Africans from Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, and Egypt who are themselves candidates for migration to Europe. So that's why these deals are showing many limitations, because there is some kind of mercantile approach. The EU is trying to give money to these countries to build these externalization centers and to try to externalize the asylum or migrants procedures. But at the same time, these countries cannot prevent their own migrants, their own people, from trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea. So let me say that it's a very interesting question, but the response is open, and it's not an easy question to respond to.
Thank you, Nuruddin.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and
You're
thank
welcome.
you also, Attorney Bungkin, for your interesting question. It is a very pressing question, but it is also open-ended because you have mentioned sovereignty, and you have mentioned the big words, human rights. So this is a subject that is for the appreciation of our states, but also I believe that beyond the whole of government approach, there is also the appreciation of our societies. A whole of society approach is necessary because, of course, governments serve their citizens. And it's important that the value systems of a country, a state, are respected. So this is an open-ended question. Now, I note that Mr. Oquendo had also tried to deliver his question. Unfortunately, for those, Mr. Oquendo included, that would like to send us questions that we won't be able to answer in the interest of time, because we will be able to extend only maximum 5-10 minutes. So we encourage you to send an email to UPCFAL for your questions. Now, we would like to reserve the last opportunity for a question to be discussed in the live Q&A for this anonymous question post. And it's from one of the participants. So the question is, how can we strengthen bilateral or multilateral cooperation between migrant sending and migrant receiving countries to implement effective anti-misinformation policies and better protect migrant communities abroad? May I invite my colleague, my classmate, Ms. Corina, to give the first reaction.
Thank you, Director Alpay. In the interest of time, I'll try to keep it short. So as my colleague or my fellow classmate, Attorney Lopez, highlighted in his presentation, misinformation can take broadly two forms. There's the kind that targets migrants, usually in the form of scams, and the type that targets the host communities of migrants in the form of anti-migrant rhetoric and misinformation. And so there's ways to tackle each of those that can involve multilateral or bilateral cooperation. So first, on the side of tackling the misinformation that targets migrants themselves, the scams. I mentioned earlier an example from the Canada-Kenya joint campaign using billboards and radio. That's one example of countries partnering together in the joint interest, recognizing that the movement of people falls under the responsibility of more than one country. And so both working together to make sure the message reaches migrants, whether they haven't left yet or if they've already reached the host country. But also there's broader campaigns. So one example is Canada often partners with other like-minded countries that have similar migration programs, like the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, to do joint campaigns, since these countries all face similar challenges with similar misinformation campaigns and scams targeting their migration programs. And so by working together, there can be opportunities to reach an even larger audience than each of those countries can do alone. And even more globally, there's campaigns that already exist. Like, did you know that every March is actually Fraud Prevention Month? And actually last week was Fraud Awareness Week globally. These are not even migration specific campaigns. This is just general fraud. But often organizations, governments that work in migration leverage those months and those weeks to do campaigns, to do public information campaigns. And so you see a lot of the same hashtags coming up, a lot of the same issues. And those are really opportunities to almost flood social media campaign and make these topics more front and center, more visible, even if for a short time. And so it again increases opportunities to address misinformation and make the accurate information louder than the misinformation. And then lastly, on the side of combating anti-immigrant rhetoric and misinformation that puts at risk public trust for immigration, in a country like Canada, 1 in 5 people in Canada were actually born outside of Canada. And so when you have a country that depends so much on immigration, public trust in the immigration system is key. And so some things that Canada does, for example, is there's this ongoing campaign called Immigration Matters, and it's jointly done with the IOM. So it does have a kind of multilateral aspect to it. And it's to highlight positive stories about the contributions that migrants make in things like research and science, in healthcare, and agriculture. So showing a lot of positive stories and really showcasing that migrants are a net gain for a lot of host countries. And did you know, for example, in Canada, like in many countries, there's a citizenship ceremony for a migrant to eventually become a Canadian citizen. But in Canada, the general public, even Canadian-born Canadians, can participate in these ceremonies, and not just as observers, they can actually apply to do what's called the citizenship reaffirmation ceremony. So it brings to light this idea that belonging to a country, being a citizen of a country, can be everyone's responsibility, and it's more a choice to abide by certain values as opposed to just the nationality you happen to have or the color of your passport. So those are kind of things that help bridge attitudes towards migrants and really integrating migrants as part of the community and making sure the host population also sees the value in immigration to continue to support continued migration. Thank you.
Thank you, Corina. Well, what you have already said is quite meaty. And the ideas, I confess, this is already somehow a free talk. These are personal opinions. And migration is such a dynamic topic. But what I can offer from my perspective as part of the Philippine government is that there is a need for migration and development to be jointly considered. And key aspects of our responsibilities, not only as governments, but our whole society, is to consider how will our country properly integrate returning migrants, and for that matter, integrate migrants from other countries. And how is that reflected in what we desire from other countries? Because of course, do unto others what you want done to yourself. It's important also to realize that migration is such an old story because the concepts that we are using now, the struggles that we have now, are struggles that have been contemplated by generations past. I believe that this debate, it will not end as long as we think individually, and we think subjectively from our perspective and label ourselves as either migrant sending or migrant receiving. We are all of us beneficiaries of development, but that also comes with responsibilities. And we also have to realize that people will move for any sort of motivation, and it doesn't have to be induced by any government or any circumstance outside of a person's control. It can be an internal decision. In fact, it is always fundamentally an internal choice. You choose to move because you can, because you want to, even in the face of great obstacles. Some people find a means to move. So that's part of the human spirit. And I think that this conversation is very important. And it's really a special opportunity that we have been given to do this webinar and to air our thoughts, our personal thoughts. So as PCGM learners, we have been encouraged by UPCFAL to really understand deeply what are the concepts that drive migration. So we wish to thank UPCFAL once again for this opportunity for our batch to demonstrate what we have learned so far in the course, the PCGM course. And now I think it's time to finally wrap up our webinar. I wish to thank all our audience, especially those who have posted questions in the Q&A, and of course, my classmates, Batch 7, Layag, for responding to the questions very gamely and very intelligently. To wrap up, I wish to recap the group's recommendations to the 3 key disruptors. On informational disruptors, to activate the regulatory power of the government, the reach of tech platforms, and society's trust in the system to combat misinformation. A more resilient native digital ecosystem subscribed to by our country's migrant workers needs to be in place. On technological disruptors, harnessing technology for humanity, integrated with advocacy and support systems, opens up possibilities to embrace digital technologies innovations to help migrants from all socio-economic levels, especially migrant workers, effectively navigate today's global labor migration landscape. And finally, on geopolitical disruptors, there is a concrete and urgent need for governments to hold up their commitments under international law to the fundamental principles of fairness and justice, to accountability and ethical governance in today's global migration landscape. This concrete and urgent need is a test of our humanity and our solidarity with our fellow human beings. The discussion on informational, technological, and geopolitical disruptions reveal to us that at the heart of all these concerns raised, humans have the opportunity to rise to the occasion and to resolve not only the burning issues of the day, but the long-term, endemic, and perennial problems of human mobility. And technological advancement can help aid human beings find solutions faster and apply them to a broader reach of the world's migrants who need these solutions to restore, preserve, and promote their rights and freedoms wherever they may be. Governments must work with the private sector, civil society, all other sectors, and most importantly, migrants themselves, to build the necessary trust and cooperation to make any solution work sustainably, ethically, and effectively. This concludes the webinar on migration in the age of disruption, misinformation, technology, and shifting geopolitical boundaries. I hope our dear audience, wherever you are in the world, had good takeaways from this learning session and dialogue. On behalf of Batch 7 Layag of the 2025 edition of the Professional Course on Global Migration of UPCFAL, thank you all for your time and attention. I wish everyone a pleasant day.